Welcome back, everyone. So we are continuing with Jack's run. So from the last book, they had to leave Elko, Nevada because Alonso Asnar found them. Now they've moved to Mateo specifically, and they mentioned some locations. I think it's like Virginia area that they're in specifically. Although Christine is living out in California, and so their mom is going to be flying back because they're going to have to be down to Georgia for the pre-trial things happening with Alonso, and Mac, which is Jack, or who is Zach, is going out to live with Christine, but Mac doesn't exactly know all the details, so we're going to find out about that today. So, here we go. Alonso Asnar had no intention of going to prison forever. He had been in federal holding facility in Atlanta for the past 8 months. As far as jails went, it wasn't bad, but he was eager to get out. This was not his first experience behind bars. When he was a young man, he had been sent to prison in Colombia. It was nothing like this American jail. The men here considered themselves dangerous men, but they were puppies compared to the hungry wolves he had shared the crowded cells with as a youth. It had taken him less than 2 days to establish himself at the top of the pecking order of his cell block, and he didn't have to use violence to achieve it. Instead, he used his wealth and power on the 2 swaggering inmates in charge of the others. "All I want is to be left alone," he told them. "No hassles. I have much work to do while I am here. I need you two to watch my back 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making certain that no one bothers me. What do we get?" "Money, of course," Alonso said. "More than you ever managed to steal on the outside. And if we refuse?" Alonso flashed a white smile at them. "Then you'll be killed, as will everyone you have ever been close to." He pushed 2 sheets of paper across the table, one for each man. On them were the names of girlfriends, wives, parents, children, brothers, and sisters. The 2 men read over the lists in shock. "You may keep the lists," Alonso said. "The addresses are current. Perhaps you'd like to contact some of these people." The arrangement had worked out well. With little more than money to cards, he had a cell to himself, a television, and he was allowed to keep his small handheld wireless computer. The handheld was his lifeline to the outside, the only thing keeping his organization from falling apart. He had paid a great deal of money for the system. All of his key people carried identical units. The computer was equipped with unbreakable encryption program. When an email was sent, the recipient only had a few minutes to answer after opening it before the email and reply address were permanently destroyed. This way, there was no record of the email left on the computers, and the emails could not be traced. Alonso sat on the cot in his small cell, composing the last email of the morning when a guard appeared in his doorway. "Your attorney is here." Alonso followed the guard down the long corridor, through several locked doors to the interview room. His well-fed Benjamin Bender was sitting at the table in his expensive 3-piece suit, his alligator skin briefcase open in front of him. Bender had a very large and successful law practice, but only one client really mattered. That client was standing in front of him now, wearing an orange jumpsuit. Bender got to his feet and held out his beefy hand. Alonso declined to take it and sat. "Did you get the trial delayed?" Bender shook his head. "I need more time," Alonso said. "There's nothing I can do." Bender ran a finger under the starched collar of his white shirt. "We were lucky to get it delayed as long as we did." Alonso was irritated, but not surprised. He had expected this. "And Osborne's diary?" Again, Bender shook his head. "No sign of it. I don't think the prosecutors have it." This was better news. Alonso had never seen the diary. In fact, he had been arrested trying to retrieve it from the boy. It supposedly detailed every aspect of his vast drug cartel. If the Drug Enforcement Agency got hold of it, that would be the end of everything. "Are you certain they don't have it?" Alonso asked quietly. "Yes," Bender answered. "The prosecution has to disclose all of the evidence they have against you so we can prepare our defenses. There's been no mention of the diary. If they had it, we would know." Why would Neil hold it back? Leverage against the DEA, perhaps, Bender speculated. Remember, Neil was in jail too, but they cut him loose to be with his family. That's very unusual. Normally, they would have kept him locked up tight until the trial was over. Made him earn his freedom. I wouldn't concern yourself about the diary. It's Neil's testimony at your trial and the information he's already given him that we need to worry about. Neil's testimony is the key to this case they have against you. Bender paused, then said, getting him to change his story would be very helpful. Unfortunately, Alonso said tightly, we have not been able to find him to discuss this, which is why I need more time. There's nothing I can do, Bender repeated helplessly. Alonso gave him an ice cold stare. But there are many things that I can do, even from a prison cell, if this doesn't come out in a favorable way. I have paid you a great deal of money over the years. Now you must earn the money. Do not let me down. Bender was visibly sweating. He knew that Alonso was having him followed, and he suspected that his office and home had been bugged. If he failed, there would be no escape. Taking Alonso Aznar on as a client had been the biggest mistake of his life. I have some other news, Bender said nervously. I'm listening. They've offered you a plea bargain. Go on. 15 years, Bender said. You could be out in 5, maybe less. In 5 years, Alonso's operation would be gone. In fact, if he didn't get out in the next few weeks, all would be lost. You're not suggesting I take their offer. Of course not, Bender said without much conviction, but by law I have to run it by you. You will tell them that I've declined the offer, Alonso said. When Alonso had found the Grangers in Elko, Mac's father was still in jail. Neil Osborne had made a deal with Agent Pelton of the DEA. He would give them all the information they needed to convict Alonso if they put his family into the witness security program and guaranteed their safety. The deal did not include a get-out-of-jail-free card. As Neil had told Mac just before the family left for Elko, it's easy to have regrets after you've been caught. I deserve to be in prison. What I did was wrong. I gave up everything I loved and nearly got you all killed. I can't undo what I've done. But as soon as you're safe, I'm going to do everything in my power to break up this cartel. I'm going to tell them what I know so I can live with myself. I'm going to tell them because it's the right thing to do. But Mac's father's commitment to the DEA shifted after Alonso found the family. Neil threatened to back out of the deal unless they let him out to protect his family personally. Reluctantly, the authorities went along with him, but there were restrictions. They took his passport and his pilot's license away. They gave him a special cell phone that he had to carry with him at all times. Inside the phone was a homing device hooked up to a computer that kept track of every step he took throughout the day. If it didn't like where he was or where he was headed, it sent a page to Don or Doris. One of them would call and ask him what he was up to. If he didn't answer the phone or they didn't like his answer, a federal warrant would be issued for his immediate arrest. In addition to this, the computer made random calls to the cell phone. When he answered, it would give him a series of words to repeat. If the computer didn't recognize his voice print, an alert would go out. It rang at all hours, day and night, but he thought it was a small price to pay to be able to be back with his family. The marshals found a 3-bedroom brick ranch house for the Greens on a quiet street at the edge of Manteo. It was much better than the matchbox they had stuffed them into in Elko. The first improvement Mac's father made was to install a sophisticated security system. The second improvement was to hide a knife, pistol, or shotgun in every room of the house, including the 2 bathrooms. In their former lives, Mac's mother would have never allowed a weapon of any kind in their house. Things had changed, though. She didn't even let out a whimper of protest over the guns and dutifully went across the bridge to the Alligator River Refuge for several weekends to undergo what his father called small arms combat training. This is when Mac found out that his father had been a Navy SEAL before he'd become a naval fighter pilot. SEALs handle classified missions from sea, air, or land, which is where the acronym comes from. Their missions include reconnaissance, clandestine operations, and unconventional counter-guerrilla warfare. Very few people are picked to undergo SEAL training, and of those, only a few make it through to become operators. Mac's father had not only become an operator, he went on to become a SEAL team commander, which is all his father would tell him about his SEAL days. The details are classified, he said. The only thing you need to know is that if Alonso's men find us, I'm more than capable of dealing with them. End of subject. As soon as the house was secured and Mac and Christine were enrolled in school, his father had to go to work. The witness security program is not a free ride. Neil was expected to make a living, just like everyone else, In fact, that was part of the cover. Nothing would arouse suspicion quicker than to have a family move into a neighborhood with parents that had no visible means of support. Another reason the marshals wanted people to work was that people with jobs were less likely to get into trouble or to dwell on what had happened to them in the past. His father's options for a regular job were limited. He tried to talk the marshals into giving him his pilot's license so he could give flying lessons at the local airfield. Too much of a flight risk, Don told him, which is the only joke Mac had ever heard him crack. With the trial coming up, Mac's father could not be tied down to a regular 9-to-5 job, so he decided to try his hand as an independent building contractor. He had always been good at fixing things up and knew about construction, plumbing, and electrical to get by. The marshals got him a contractor's license, brought him a van and some tools, and Green Construction was born. Mac's mother wanted to get a job too, but decided to hold off until Christine was settled in Los Angeles. Before Alonso, she had been a real estate agent and was now considering renewing her license. His father thought it would be great if they could team up. She could buy rundown houses and he could fix them up to resell or rent out. Mac's mother liked the idea, but wouldn't commit to it. Things had gotten better between them since they'd become the Greens, but their marriage was nowhere near as solid as it had been before Neil's arrest. Their father was clearly guilty of betraying their mother, but both Christine and Mac hoped they'd work it out. Mac was sitting in the living room thinking about all this when he heard his father's van pull into the driveway. A moment later, Neil came through the front door, looking a little tired. Mac was still struck by how much his father had changed since his arrest. He used to have a head of thick black hair, which he kept relatively long. Now it was short, with more gray in it than black. He had never been fat, but he was really thin now, giving him kind of a haunted look. He wasn't out of shape. Far from it. He just looked different. When he got out of jail, he started running every day, miles and miles, sometimes going out both in the morning and the evening, as if he couldn't get enough of the open space into his system. But it was more than just his appearance that had changed. His father used to be a big practical joker. He loved a good laugh, even when the joke was on him. Not anymore. Mac guessed that getting caught with an airplane load of dope and worrying about their safety all the time had sucked his sense of humor right out of him. Hungry? His father said. Starving. What'd you do today? Read a little, worked out. When are you going to start running with me? Mac gave him a vague shrug. When he was young, he had fallen from his bedroom window, breaking both legs. The doctor had said he might not even walk again, and if he did, he would have a bad limp. His father wouldn't accept that. He worked with Mac every day until he was literally back on his feet. No limp, but running was difficult with the steel pins in his legs. I'll grab a shower, his father said. Then we'll head out. Their favorite restaurant was the Crab Bowl in Kill Devil Hills on the Outer Banks, a resort area on the Atlantic filled with summer homes and hotels. When they arrived, the restaurant was crowded and the hostess told them it would be at least 45 minutes before she could seat them. They found a spot outside with a view of the Kill Devil Hills in the distance. This is where Wilbur and Orville Wright had made their first manned flight. Mac asked his father if he missed flying. He looked at the hills and said, "Every time an airplane flies over." Do you think they'll give you your license back? Maybe someday. I hope so. But if they don't, it won't be the end of the world. I'm content with what I'm doing now. It's honest work. He did look content, and Mac was tempted not to ruin his good mood by asking the questions that had been on his mind all day. But the problem with his father's other moods was that he wouldn't answer questions when he was in them. Doris called today, Mac said. On the house phone? Mac nodded. His father patted his pocket for the cell, wondering if it had malfunctioned. She was calling to check on me, Mac said, not you. His father looked relieved. What did you talk about? Alonso's trial. She has no business talking with you about that. He pulled out his cell phone and flipped it open. Wait, Mac said. It was my fault. I kind of tricked her into it. His father's eyes narrowed. Tricked her how? Mac told him about the marks on the calendar and how he pretended to know more than he did. His father slipped the phone back into his pocket and then looked back towards the hills. Giving Mac the silent treatment for a couple of minutes. When he turned back, he had calmed some, but Mac could tell he was still irritated. What did Doris tell you? She said the trial could go on for a long time. His father nodded. Alonso and his attorney are going to fight hard. Everything they have is riding on the outcome. Where are we going to stay during the trial? The trial is being held in Atlanta. His father looked a little confused and said, You're not going to be at the trial. What are you talking about? There's no reason for you to be there. Are you kidding? Mac was shocked. Who else is going to testify about what happened in Elko? I was the one Alonso came after. Those charges have been dropped, he said. What? Mac asked a little too loudly. Several people looked at them. The marshals laid out a pretty good case for letting the whole thing slide, his father said. They were relieved to have the Elko incident go away. It was embarrassing for them to have the bad guys find someone in the so-called witness security program. That was my fault, Mac pointed out. We've been over that a dozen times, his father said. Alonso already knew you were in Elko. That's why we have to continue to be careful. He may be locked up, but I guarantee he has people looking for us. Mac didn't say anything for a few moments, trying to digest what he had just been told. He was looking forward to testifying against Alonso, but what disappointed him even more was the fact he wasn't going to see Kat. He thought she would be at the trial to testify and hoped he might get a chance to see her. What about Sam Sebasta? He asked. He certainly isn't afraid of Alonso. You're right about that, his father said. I don't think he's afraid of anyone. It was Mac's turn to be confused. His father was talking as if he knew Sam, but he'd been in jail when they were in Elko. How do you know? He came to see me in jail, his father answered. To give you the diary? Not exactly. The day before I got out, they brought me down into the interview room. Sam was waiting for me there. I thought he was another cop. It seemed like every day someone new would show up to ask questions. I nearly tipped my chair over backward when he told me that he was the custodian at your school. I don't know how he got in there, but they let him in without question, by himself, which was unusual. They were very careful about who they let in to see me. Everyone, with the exception of Agent Pelton and your friend Sam, were accompanied by guards. He was a Russian spy, Max said. It was the first time he had told anybody this, but his father didn't look at all surprised. A former colonel of the KGB, he said, but there's more to it than that. To get in to see me, with or without a guard, he would have to know some very important people in our government. And that's where we are going to end for today. I'll talk to you guys next time.